Coming up on episode 59 of the Upful Life podcast.
Sometimes we play our best shows when we're at odds in interpersonal ways, because it's just a release, and there's a way to reconnect with your homies that, sometimes your emotions aren't allowing you to do, but when you tap into the root that we're all, the reason that that all of us in this band have been put on this earth, and the reason that we're all together traveling around here, when you can tap into that thing and take all of the bright brain out of it and the conversational issues or whatever, we tap into some of the best and most pure things. It's like in the moments of like the most complete chaos, you obviously have the most, you can sometimes have the most clarity in life. I'm sure that you've been through that in your life before, and I think that transcends musically for this group a lot.
I kind of showed up as a beginner, really. I took to this profession later on in life, and I found the Seattle music scene to be really welcoming. It was a really, just a really inclusive vibe. Part of me wants to say like a little bit like a low price of entry, but not in a bad way, not in a negative way. It's just that everybody's welcome to kind of come up and like do their thing.
Right.
Which there's a lot of jam sessions in the city, which some of the best musicians lead and interact with all ranges, right, from beginner to advanced to whatever you are. Showing up is the big part in Seattle, right? And so showing up to the scene, the people who show up and the people who keep showing up are the ones that end up owning it, really. And I feel really honored and really blessed to consider myself one of those people. I feel like I'm part of the scene. I showed up and I kept showing up.
Yes, indeedy. Welcome to the Upful Life podcast. I'm your host, B.Getz, and this is episode number 59, coming at you live and direct from the Vibe Junkie Studios in Oakland, California. Like wine from the vine, episode 59. So grateful you are tuning in.
We want you to lend us your souls, and we promise we'll give them back to you better than you gave them to us. Buckle up and enjoy the ride.
Yes, indeedy. The Upful Life podcast would like to thank our good friends at Sacred Rose. Sacred Rose Music Festival is taking place August 26th through the 28th in Chicago, Illinois. at just outside SeatGeek Stadium. It's a first-year event, and it's shaping up to be a doozy. I'm honored and privileged to be there in about a week, headed up by my friend and Sacred Rose founder, Michael Berg. The eclectic lineup is a blooming love letter to the sweet sounds of Americana, psych rock, jam, indie, soul, funk, and bluegrass. And it's going to cater towards music heads who crave live music mastery. The lineup is too stacked to go through everybody, but some of the artists I'm looking forward to, of course, my boys in Lettuce are playing on Friday, and you're hearing them in the background from their Live in Amsterdam vinyl-only release, the new reel. But Lettuce is playing on Friday. The first band on Friday kicking off the festival, Gone Gone Beyond. You've heard David Block, The Human Experience from Gone Gone Beyond on this podcast. There's also a very special Phil Lesh and Friends set, 2 sets in the evening that include members of Wilco and Carl Denson, among others. You've got Animal Collective, War on Drugs, St. Paul and the Broken Bones, and that's just the first day. I mean, we've got Sound Tribe Sector 9 and Lotus and La Special, as well as Disco Biscuits and Goose and Humphreys McGee for 2 sets. Orchard Lounge, Andy Frasco, and the list goes on. Sun Squabby with Kanika Moore. And then on Sunday, bringing it home strong with Karung Bin, J-Rad, Kamazi Washington, Green Sky Bluegrass, the Wood Brothers, Dawes, Hiatus Coyote, Karina Reichman, Maggie Rose, Holly Bowling, the Kitchen Dwellers, Infamous String Dusters. So many options. So that's Sacred Rose, August 26th to 28th. We'll be there. We'll also be at our friends Brooklyn Comes Alive, headed up by Live for Live Music. Brooklyn Comes Alive is obviously in Brooklyn at the Brooklyn Mirage on September 17th, 2022. Brooklyn Comes Alive is an annual event that's been out of commission due to the pandemic, but it's back, connecting with GMP Live, my man Gideon, and Backline Org. Of course, Kunjan Sarah from Live for Live Music, Andrew O'Brien, the team I work with all the time. So we'll be at Brooklyn Comes Alive as well. Sound Tribe Sector 9, the first Medeski Martin and Wood show in several years. Lettuce will be there, and the debut performance of Cool Cool Cool, which features most of the former members of Turquoise, plus episode 58's special guest, Nate Edgar. So yeah, those are 2 huge events that Upful Life is proud to be a guest and a reporter and affiliated with. And if you're hitting either of these events, look out for me. I'll hit you with some stickers. We'll have a conversation. I'm looking forward to meeting a lot of fans out there. So Sacred Rose Festival in Chicago, Brooklyn Comes Alive in Brooklyn. Give thanks. Yes, indeedy. Yes, indeedy. Welcome back. The Upful Life podcast. And, I was just talking about our friends at Live for Live Music, and you can check out a whole lot of what I've been up to since we last spoke on liveforlivemusic.com. Before I do that, I want to let everyone know I really appreciate all the feedback from episode 58 with Nate Dogg, Nate Edgar of the Nth Power. Really warms the heart and is a super affirmation to receive that kind of feedback. So big up yourselves. And if you're curious about what I've been up to since Nate Dogg and right now, I went out to Red Rocks for a few shows, including Lettuce and the Tower of Power with the Colorado Symphony Orchestra. And you can read about that, as well as 2 nights of Sound Tribe Sector 9, also at Red Rocks. We did a review on the Rising Appalachia Berkeley show, entitled Resilient Against the Machine, and a 3-day inaugural Blue Note Jazz Festival Napa Valley, which was at the Charles Krug Winery here in Napa, NorCal. The lineup was absolutely ridiculous, headlined by Black Star and Kamasi Washington and Shaka Khan and Robert Glasper, and the list goes on. You can read all about it. The article, a review, reflection, what have you, is titled Escúchala, La Ciudad, on the scene at the inaugural Blue Note Jazz Festival Napa Valley. Again, you can find that on Live for Live Music and upfullife.com. Speaking of, please consider smashing that subscribe button to the Upful Life podcast on your podcast platform of choice. Much obliged. And on that topic, if you are so inclined and do have the time, please rate or review the Upful Life podcast, specifically on Apple Podcasts, but really whatever podcast platform of choice that you listen on, because those reviews go a long way in steering the algorithms in this direction, bringing new listeners to the Up for Life podcast, and the ratings do the same. It only takes a couple minutes, so really appreciate a couple new reviews up there, and yeah, that is just huge. So rate and review the pod, and you can hit me up directly, as you know, B.Getz at upfullife.com. Send me an email. Any feedback, any suggestions, any constructive criticisms or corrections, or whatever you want to share with me. I always appreciate hearing from the listeners. B.Getz at upfullife, upfullife.com. That's how you get at me, dog. And I neglected to mention the last couple episodes that I've been writing for nugs.net. I did talk about the project I did with the Nth Power at the end of the spring, and then I did a detailed tour diary about Metallica in South America. So you can check that out on nugs.net. Hopefully I'll be doing some more stuff with them. It's been an absolute joy to, dive into the archives, if you will, and listen to music and write about it, which is kind of the core, embryonic thing that I do. So, check out anything I got going on, nugs.net, and shout out to Aria for bringing me on board the Nugs team. You're hearing a little bit of Detox Unit, Recent Works Volume 4 in the background. And now let's get into episode 59. Yes, indeedy.
It's time for the...
This one's called the Cut Down.
And we're back. Episode 59 of the Upful Life podcast is stoked to welcome guitarist Ben Bloom and bassist Jason Gray of Polyrhythmics. Polyrhythmics, based out of Seattle. They take sonic exploration experiences of past albums and combine them with the mad scientist experiments, testing the tunes on the road, and then roll them up into studio releases like 2020's Man from the Future and its companion EP Fondue Party, both heard on Color Red label. Now, I go way back with Ben Bloom, like 25 years-ish, to the Northeast jam scene and 1.0 Fish tour. But I just met bassist Jason Gray at Suwannee Rising in Spirit of Suwannee Music Park back in April. And that's where this conversation took place after they had played a night set followed up by a day set. And then we settled in for a conversation at a picnic table outside of a cabin. You can probably hear I'm a bit weathered from 3 days and nights of full-blown festivaling. And these guys are mighty spry and focused and articulate and insightful. So at the time, I did a lot of talking. But what you're going to hear is mostly their talking. And I surgically removed a number of detours and rabbit holes that I went on just because I was yammering a bit much. So you also hear some noise in the background. You know, we are doing this during a festival. So there'll be a little bit of background stuff, but did my best to make it sound pretty good. And it's really interesting to hear these sort of polar opposite journeys of Ben and Jason unifying in polyrhythmics, and their modus operandi and intention and ambition is all discussed and on display, as well as influences and life experiences that predate, Seattle or being in this band. They've been a band since 2010. I think they are about, the album they talk about recording now, I believe, is their 7th full-length album. And even though we talked about it in April, it's yet to be released. Of course, we'll keep you all posted about all that stuff in terms of future releases. But with that, I think I'm going to pop over to this Telluride Jazz Festival snippet about polyrhythmics, and then read a little bit of that so you get an idea about what we're dealing with here, and then we'll get into the interview. As this band's name suggests, rhythm is what we'll get. They bring in elements of funk, psychedelia, soul, progressive jazz, afrobeat, and R&B into their sound. As a YouTube commenter noted, if Lettuce and Snarky Puppy had a baby, it would sound something like this: fierce guitar work, a punchy horn section, melodic funky bass, and keyboard wizardry combined for incendiary work. Polyrhythmics rely on circular grooves and melodic content, a state of song that induces a trance-like lost in the music experience. And we are going to hear from Ben Bloom on guitars and bassist Jason Gray, who's also one hell of an engineer behind the boards. And yeah, I might have been a little late to the Polyrhythmics party, but I am so on board. And I'm really stoked to present this conversation with Jason and Ben on episode 59 of the Upful Life podcast. I'm your host, B.Getz. This is The Cut Down. Yes, indeedy. All right. It's a very special day in the Upful Life podcast and in my life, because I'm sitting here in the glorious, phantasmagorical confines of Spirit of Suwannee Music Park, very dear to my heart, with two gentlemen from the band Polyrhythmics, Ben Bloom, guitarist, and Jason Gray, bassist. Mm-hmm. They just played 2 sets here at Suwannee Rising 2022. And I have the good fortune of having tracked them down in between some music for a quick conversation on the Up for Life podcast. So, gentlemen, welcome.
Thank you.
Great to be here with you, B.
Feelings are mutual. And Ben, you and I go way back, so this is going to be fun. And I'm stoked to have just met Jason. Big fan of the band. Big fan of just that we got a lot of Venn diagram crossover in life and music. So this is going to be great. So let's talk about the here and now, because we're here at Suwannee Rising. I know it's not your first time here, but reflections. You played a night set, you played a day set. You went on after the Dumpster Funk George Porter real special set, and then obviously kind of took the afternoon by storm, really gave people like the battery in the back for the last day of the festival. So I'm curious what reflections you have on the two performances and the energy of this place, or anything you want to share about like this visit.
Yeah, well, first of all, this is our first time actually getting to spend time here in the music park and take in the whole vibe of it all. We were here once in 2019 for Halloween, and we were in the middle of a tour in the Southeast where we were playing like every night, and we basically came in and out for a set that night, and it was like right in the middle of the tour. The band was like at each other's throats. We were like fighting and just not, like in the darkest days of a run, and we pull into this park, and it was just like lit up like a light bulb in a desert. Basically, it was just like an amazing sight for the eyes and senses, and we rocked a set, and we drove out of here basically being like, God, I wish we could have stayed here for a little while longer. We drove to like Lafayette, Tennessee or something ridiculous to play like a show for like 12 people instead of staying here and partying. So this time is really special because we're actually able to experience what the vibe is here, the amazing power of the park, the beauty of nature, the amazing people, and of course like all the structures and like infrastructure that's here that's like historical. I know we connected last night on the gentleman who built the tree houses here, who we know from Southern Oregon. So it's just like a lot of worlds kind of colliding.
Remind me of his name again.
His name is Michael, okay. And he's a legend in the tree house building community. As we had no idea he built this here or that he was going to be here at all. But we've played his compound in Takilma, Oregon, which is a very special place. Bunch of tree houses up in the trees, and so just like all the little connections that are kind of come together with us hanging here on the grounds and kind of get into the vibe of it. And I feel like musically we were able to come in and sort of like assess the situation and be like, this is how we feel. Let's play something that reflects how we're feeling based on this experience that we're having right now. And I think that anytime we get a chance to do that and sort of add to the soundtrack of the experience overall, it's the greatest way that we can present our music. So feel fortunate enough to have that time out of time, as they say.
I think you all were the only ones that got 2 sets.
Yeah, I didn't know that coming into the festival, but I saw it seems like that.
Yeah.
And which is, it makes me feel even more grateful for them to allow us that experience, because, obviously we're far away. It was really expensive to get here and whatever, but it's just really nice that it feels like we were welcomed into this community with like such open arms, and the people were really stoked to hear what we were ready to bring.
Yeah.
That's just the greatest thing.
I think it's a testament to your music and like your vibe that two things that my perception of being here for a long time, knowing Paul the way I do, is very difficult slot to follow. This very special Meters tribute with George and Dumps. There was a lot of tears, and it was also like heavy, heavy, loud, heavy, aggressive, heavy emotions. And very few artists, period, bands, whatever, are cut from a mold that can then, it's like what in the Roots song where they're like, how are we supposed to rock after them?
Yeah.
Like how you're supposed to go on after the Roots? How you're supposed to go on after that? But you did in a way that was like so vibey, just like everyone was like really intense energy, like stoked, emotional, sad, spent, spun, all the things. And y'all, I said this last night, y'all like surrounded us with vibe. You didn't crash the one or like hammer us hard or try to go haymaker for haymaker with who played before you, and instead just like created this like cauldron of vibe where everybody just homogenized. The dance floor was fucking raging and good energy, like how we like to get down, like it was just,
yeah.
And that to me is like the litmus test, not just playing after that band, but seeing the way the crowd responded to your music, like surrendered to the flow, to borrow a phrase, is a test, because this is a special place with a special community, and like y'all did the near impossible, which was to go on after that and still land the trick, as they say. But I don't want to leave you out, Jason. Is this your first time other than Halloween here?
Yep, same situation.
What are some of your reflections coming through here for Suwannee Rising specifically?
coming back here was an exciting proposition from the beginning when we found out we were going to be coming back. I think Ben alliterated a little bit on that, about how special the impression was the first time, and how we wished we could have stayed and experienced more of the energy here. And I think that's part of what we brought. Like it's the unique thing about playing live music in so many different locations is you're coming in with a certain type of energy, right? You're coming into town off of, in the middle of a tour when, say, we're at each other's throats, or maybe at the beginning of the tour when there's that new energy, when we're fresh back out on the road and we're all stoked. Whatever it is, it's different. And when we came here this time, I believe it was fueled by our previous experience here. And to be able to come back and actually spend some more time and dig in a little bit is, we're all looking forward to it, and it's been fantastic. This place is truly magical.
It sure is, yeah. And yeah, like I said, the 2 sets thing, like traditionally, Halloween aside, talk Bear Creek, like the pillars got 2. Lettuce, Dumpster, Master Sounds, like that's who gets 2 sets when they come through here. And Suwannee Rising is kind of like the grandchild of Bear Creek. It's like a mini Bear Creek, better weather, slightly slower pace, maybe about half the people. And that's what's cool about Rising is it's small. Like, I love Hula. It's my favorite festival, Burning Man aside. But it's so go. Y'all were in, out. Like, there's so many stages, so many people, whether it's the egress, the volume of people, the pace, of course, like the all-night sound camp parties. There's no opportunity for this. There's no opportunity for the drop-in we had with Jake from Funk City.
Right.
Like, that stuff doesn't happen at Hula. That's why we also like to come to the Folksy Fest. But I don't want to get too much off the path, other than to say it's a subtle nod to what Paul, or what I perceive Paul to think of y'all's band, to bless you with the twofer. The other side, I think, is like he really wanted y'all probably to go on after George and them because of the vibe and the dance and the dub on the energy on the porch stage, which that's also a legendary stage, that porch stage. We'll come back to that. But the other thing is, I think he obviously felt like y'all deserved to play the amp. The amp is the throne. It's like the house that Let built, or for some people, the house that the Almonds built.
Yeah.
And, yes, you should play the porch after George, but like Polyrhythmics deserves to play a set on the throne. Hence the twofer. And y'all delivered completely different experiences, both right on time for the moment, the energy, time of day, tenor of the crowd. Amazing.
Yeah, it's a big festival with all of the trappings,
Right.
And we've been seeing music for a long time. There's times when you want to get down on that level, you know what I mean, where it's like intensity and lights and experience and just be immersed in art and the whole thing, and not worry about waiting on lines or whatever. And then there's times where you want to have a low-key experience with your homies and your friends. You want to reconnect with people and take in music in a maybe more personal way, that's a little less whatever. But all those experiences are important, And I think it's just amazing. I mean, first of all, we feel extremely blessed to be able to be playing 2 sets here. Obviously, the weight of the amount of heavies that have come before us in this place, and just in general in this scene, is not lost on us in any way. It's so... we feel very honored to even just be like starting to crack the surface of like getting some people's ears on the music that we're doing, and getting out to those places and feeding that hunger with some live shows. And so I think that it's just like one of those, great gifts that we've been given in this universe to be able to come here for both of those types of experiences, and I can't wait to come back for something completely different next time, or
Hopefully
something
next
big,
Hula. I'm gonna beat the drum. Berg, if you're listening.
Yeah, let's go, Berg. Come on.
We're gonna make this shit happen, because I wasn't in 2019. We went so huge. 2018, I got engaged, married, all that stuff, that we actually took 2019 Hula off. But I had a number of conversations this weekend with fans about your set on the campground stage. So take me there. Like, I thought last night was a raging party. What did you think of like playing Spirit Lake? Was it after dark?
It was after dark.
Yeah.
It was psychedelic. It was like, they had these like projections on the lake, like the rotating skull projections. It's just like, stuff that you're just like, I mean, not to get too like detailed, but like the little Spidey like LSD synapse sense in the back of my neck, like just like triggered immediately, which is a feeling I haven't really felt in like 7 or 8 years, you know, like in earnest, where you walk in and you're just like, just a little bit would go a long way right now, you know, like one of those kind of just like the door was like opening for me kind of thing. So it was just a magical thing. We, you know, like I said, the energy of the band, sometimes we play our best shows when we're at odds in interpersonal ways, you know, because it's just a release, and there's a way to reconnect with your homies that, you know, sometimes your emotions aren't allowing you to do. But when you tap into the root that we're all, you know, that the reason that all of us in this band have been put on this earth and the reason that we're all together traveling around here, when you can tap into that thing and take all of the you know, the bright brain out of it and the conversational issues or whatever, we tap into some of the best and most pure things. You know, it's like in the moments of like the most complete chaos, you obviously have the most, you know, you can sometimes have the most clarity in life. You know, I'm sure that you've been through that in your life before, and I think that transcends musically for this group a lot. And we were, that night in particular, we knew we played a hot set. Like we were like, that was fire. We had a great time. We were like hugging each other, you know, like it was like the release that we needed.
It's medicine for whatever the issues were in the moment.
Yeah, and a lot of it's like logistical shit, you know, like traveling fucking pains, and we're not making any money, and we're like chapping into new markets where nobody knows what the fuck we're doing, and you know they want us to play some covers, and we don't play cover, you know, like we're just not the thing that other bands might be, that people are like already imprinting you on, you know, when you go turn them on for the first time. So, you know, whatever all that emotional shit was, that set felt really good. And, you know, talking about Jake, what was really kind of sealed it is like when we got home from that tour, Jake had posted like a YouTube video of it that we got to watch and started seeing people commenting on, like sharing. It was like one of the best like live videos that we've had someone take of ours that got some attraction.
Quick pause for the cause. A couple of golf cart ragers rolled by, so we kind of had to take a pause. And I should mention, this is day 3 of the festival. Very little sleep, some imbibing, a lot of dancing. So if any of us seem slightly to the side, please excuse. And occasionally we're going to have to take a pause when we, you know, there's bands playing in the background. We got ragers around. For those listening, actually, we're really tucked into this beautiful part of the park back by both the RV camping and Lyle Styles cabin is in this hood where there's some classic Bear Creek Ragers. So this is, you know, sacred grounds, as we were talking about, just like the depth of the connection here. I wanted to piggyback on something you said in your last response, which is about playing shows, going to markets, people don't know what you do, you know, whether financial indications, the travel. I mean, I don't think we mentioned it yet, but you're a Seattle band, so you're really coming not just east to west coast, but like northwest all the way to southeast. There's a lot to it. But that's the beauty of playing here and like landing here, like really making it count. And like the fans here, I already heard your record being played in the woods since you last played. Like somebody was like, went and put y'all on after they listened to y'all, which is a great sign, right? But now these people, this is a very regional type event. Georgia, Asheville, all the way down to Miami, into like Alabama and stuff. So the people that came to this festival, you know, now some of them do know what you're about, do know what you do. If you do book something in these markets, I'm not saying it's an overnight thing,
sure,
but hula, and now this, like, you've made an imprint. Like, I was late to the party. But cool. It wasn't until I saw you in the casino post Lettuce when you played after them in Tahoe that I really got hip to what y'all were about. And then since then, Yeah, I just been like getting familiar, getting hip to it. So I hear the talk on the streets.
Well, thank you, man. That means a lot to us because that record in particular, we just went for it. The pandemic hit, and we're like, we have 2 records in the can that need to come out, so we're gonna release them, regardless of whether it's good for us or not, like business-wise or whatever. And we had to get them out of the pipe so that we can make more music. That's the way that we operate when we're like all in on a project. And then when the project's got to get out to the world before we're ready to move on to that next thing.
Right.
And so that's the thing, like leave as much of it behind. So that came out probably in May of 2020 when it was like, this is the worst time possible for you should save the record, they say,
Well, yes or no, it was unprecedented time because people were home and they could consume art, videos, whatever, but at the same time you can't take it on the road.
Exactly.
Like, I made sure it got in my best of the year shit,
we appreciate it.
Because it was, again, not on some homie shit, art for art's sake. It was one of my favorite records of the year, and I said so. But I just think that album, much like Le Special Ancient Homies, which is on Rope-A-Dope, and y'all Man of the Future, Color Red, is like dope label, band doing their own thing, art for art's sake. That's the stuff I want to champion. That's why I'm doing this pod. That's why I do what I do. I also wanted to ask, maybe Jason, you could take this one. Like I'm plugged into New Orleans, and I'm from the Philly area. I got crew in New York, spent a lot of time in New York, Denver, of course. Shout out to Chris Littlefield, friend of the pod. Take me to the scene in Seattle, because we're talking about Suwannee here. I want to know, like how did the band kind of establish their space, their fans, what you have, like the home base anchor. Tell me about Seattle, because I don't know what the scene is like there at all.
Yeah, so the Seattle music scene, I feel like I showed up kind of just in time for kind of the tail end of a lot of really cool projects that had been Seattle standards or Seattle institutions for a while. Let's see, there was what was it? Funk Scribes band was Altered States of Funk, Marmalade. That was like Thick in the Marmalade days.
Littlefield was what Marmalade.
Right. Yeah.
If you don't know what to do, that's because you ain't getting funky for true. You can't be just sitting around listening to the beat of the Marmalade sounds. If you don't know where to go, got to get your booty up on the floor. Can't be just sitting around, gotta get up to get down. Come on.
Speaking of CD, man, he's such a sweet human being. It's really cool to hear that. That adds up totally with what I know about him. Yeah, he's a super nice dude. Yep. And so I kind of got exposed to the Seattle music scene in that, and Marmalade would go see Marmalade at Toast, right, which is a venue that doesn't even exist any longer.
We had one of those in Burlington.
Yeah.
No relation. Club Toast.
Club Toast. Wow. Yeah, it's cool. It's and that was one of the first places I played, as a musician in Seattle, and I kind of showed up as a beginner, really. It took to this profession later on in life, and I found the Seattle music scene to be really welcoming. It was a really just a really inclusive vibe. Part of me wants to say a little bit like a low price of entry. But not in a bad way, not in a negative way. It's just that everybody's welcome to kind of come up and do their thing.
Right.
Which there's a lot of jam sessions in the city, which some of the best musicians lead and interact with all ranges, right, from beginner to advanced to whatever you are. Showing up is the big part in Seattle, right? And so showing up to the scene, the people who show up and the people who keep showing up are the ones that end up owning it, really.
Right.
And I feel really honored and really blessed to consider myself one of those people. I feel like I'm part of the scene. I showed up and I kept showing up, and it's led me to the Polyrhythmics dudes. I was actually going to school for music at Cornish College of the Arts, and that's how I met Grant, the drummer. We both knew Ben through different avenues, through other bands in the scene. And the three of us got together and basically made a plan. The Polyrhythmics was fairly planned out from the beginning. A lot of the more fundamental ideas actually stemmed from Ben. he had a vision for this coming into it. And from what I understand, the phone call went from, when Grant called Ben, it's like, oh yeah, I've been thinking about that, so Ben had already had a vision for that, and has led us through that. Interesting that it started out as intended to be a recording project. This was never really intended to be like a full-on touring band. Our objective was to make records.
On that. Yeah, I want to hear more about the modus operandi mission from the embryo.
Right, yeah. And so from the beginning, like I said, it was fairly organized. We kind of said, okay, cool. We want to make there's no one really doing this afro-beat influenced original funk, all instrumental music in Seattle. There's some bands doing it, but not really. We're coming a little more from the early influences of the Daptones crew, Budo's band, Menahan, yeah, the textures and it's interesting looking back. I can see how different members of the band were creatively integrating those influences in different ways. Some of the writers of the band would take, Ben was a prominent early writer in the band, and he was taking a lot of those more musical construction cues, and here I was, the engineer, looking at the textures and the sounds and trying to incorporate how to apply that to both my playing and to the crafting of our recordings, which are all self-produced. The band does a terrific job of producing this music just really collectively. As far as the input from each member from the beginning, it's been so collaborative and really a big lesson in personal dynamics for all of us, and I think that's really that's the fire that keeps us together, is the fact that we can overcome our differences, and the product is amazing. And then as long as we allow it to be, it always turns out that way.
Yeah.
So
that's really interesting that in its inception it was not designed to be something to experience. It was going to be not like a product, but like a document, like a piece of music to be listened to, but it was not to be presented in the live element. And what we're witnessing here is such an immersive, full spectrum live music experience.
Mm-hmm.
that journey from sort of a distilled vision in its beginning. Here's what we're trying to do here. Here's the cats.
Yep.
And then you in the engineer chair, textures, sound, to this living, breathing, thriving, vibing organism. What are you, 8 people up there? Fucking octo-tentacled. I mean, dude. That's incredible, and I really appreciate you sharing that sort of nugget, that sort of because the average listener's not going to know that. I watch y'all communicating up there, see what you mean about that, the exchange, and one of the things I love about your band is very few solos, textural, you move as one, the music, the collective moves as one, and everybody does their little part. It's a lot conceptually like reggae, in the sense that it's filling space, and the ghost notes are just as important. Dynamics, that's what I want to get to. The that's maybe the most impressive part about the band. The dynamics get me off. In a way, I don't know if you heard me, but anytime you went hold it back, and then the drop would come after the one, and it would just be I would just hoot, I would just squeal. This is very effective. And that a lot of, that's you with the different tones and locked in the pocket with the bass line, and then whatever effect or something that gives it just this robust, bulbous, fucking resonant boom. But because you guys don't hammer us, it's very vibey, it's very dynamic, that when you do bring out the nuclear, it's like catatonic. You know what I mean? And that energy, band, fan, that exchange, when that happens and it's organic, you can't even, and I love electronic music, but it doesn't happen the same way. The drops are dope and also orgasmic, but it's not the same alchemy as what that is. And y'all are so great at just delivering those pops, those like energy blasts of dynamics. Like, was that part of the plan in the beginning? Was that like, we're going to be a band of dynamics, we're going to be a band that moves as one? Was that part of the, or did you figure that out on the road, like on the journey?
I think it's funny. I think as far as the dynamics go, the band really likes to play with that. Like, that's us being playful with the energy, right? Because like a lot of what you're talking about, like when you drop the nuke, it's like, and especially as it pertains to the bass effects in my own playing and how I point my energy and how I envision it is with respect and regard to the energy, like just like that, like holding it back, taking it up high. So because there's actually physically less energy when you play a little higher notes, right? But when you send those low notes, you're actually sending a lot more juice, and being discerning about where to apply that is, for this band, has been an exchange between writing and recording and performing. Because we field test our tunes, most of our tunes, long before they're ever captured on recording. And we see how we feel about them when we do a certain thing. And we look at the crowd, the audience, and see how they feel when we do a certain thing. And when that lines up, when both are good, okay, cool, let's keep that part of the arrangement, and then it makes it on the record. So in a sense, you can kind of say that the audience really helps us write the record, because they're the first ones to experience the music that we write before we capture it. And so going back to the dynamics, a lot of our dynamic decisions of where to drop it, when to pull it back, when to hammer it home, are dictated by how we feel when we play our new music for our people on stage.
That's so fucking cool and righteous. It is truly an organism.
It is. It's a back and forth.
It's a reciprocal, symbiotic thing. And when you say when you drop it, when you like, where I use like the word nuke, even then it's tasteful. It is never obnoxious, aggressive, anything other than still in the zone that y'all exist in. But great articulation of the energy and the resonance in the lower frequencies, and like that's sacred. It's also like a whole lot. So like if you overdo it, it just becomes like it loses its fucking edge. And that's dynamics in a nutshell, but particularly like in terms of the dance, the band, I live for that. I mean, it started with us with Fish back in the day, right? Like losing yourself in the dance, the exchange where it's like has nothing to do with like dancing with someone. It's a art form of the music. What comes from that is like the music fills us up, and then we release that in movement, which is art, which then, as you just told me, informs the art, the reaction, the energy, the exchange. Like that is, for me, what it's all about. Like sober, spun, funk, drum and bass, whatever, is like that exchange of the artist and the dance, and that I live for it. I chase it. Burning Man, Suwannee, Jazz Fest, High Sierra. I'm after the dance, and y'all gave it to us in extreme potency twice. Robbie Krevlin, who's our mutual friend. My best friend is going to be in my wedding party. I met him on the Hebrew bus, elementary school age. He had like a Def Leppard back patch. I had Motley. We talked hair bands. We both had mullets. And this friendship was born, right? Robbie doesn't listen to the pod, if at all, very infrequently. So Robbie, I hope motherfucking Ben Bloom is enough for you to listen to this podcast. Never misses Jeopardy, but he doesn't listen to the pod. Anyway, love you, Robbie. So I grew up with Rob, and Ben went to college with Rob and was in a band with Rob a couple times over, a Boston band and a post-college band, The Truth, right? Yeah. You and I would cross paths, shows, fish stuff mostly, and I'd come to visit Robbie, etc. We also have a lot of mutual friends. And as we noted off the air earlier, this thing of ours, La Cosa Nostra, as they call it, is really rooted in the fertile seeds that were planted in the Northeast. I mean, everything comes back to the fucking hate and the dead and fucking Coltrane and LSD, but our thing, La Cosa Nostra, this thing of ours,
right,
is rooted in the sort of post-Garcia's passing window, pre-2000. It was just like this blip of an artistic explosion in a genre that didn't really exist yet. And we're just lucky that our folks sent us away to school in that region, right? And all this stuff that we experience here, as you noted earlier, can really be traced back to like the blueprint, whether it's Berkfest, whether it's the stuff that was going down in the sort of Berkeley universe, and then the diaspora where the Berkeley folks went, who they met, all that stuff. BU, I was in Burlington, Vermont. New Hampshire played a role, Portland, Maine, Providence with the Slip, right? So Connecticut with, like Garrett.
Yeah.
Miracle Orchestra, pre-motet. I'm just giving the listeners I know you know all this shit already. I bet you probably do too. But not everybody listening understands the depth of the sort of filial tradition from then to now, but you do. So I want to go back there, man. Did you realize it in real time that you were like a part of something that would be your sort of like lifelong community organism thing? Did you know that back then, or were you just like, this is fun as fuck, and then now in the rear view mirror you realize you were there for the magic?
I think I realized it then. I think that when I went to school in Boston, it was kind of purposeful. Like, I wanted to go to music school, and I was already pretty clear that there was nothing left. There was nothing else in my life that was important, that was more important than music. Like, I didn't have all the skills or the facilities or even like any kind of understanding of how the music industry would work, or, what it really would take to be that. But I knew that what I was here to do was to play and to leave music behind that was original. And in high school, when I was in New York, where I grew up, I had a really, really dynamic crew of really talented musicians that I went to high school with, and we had a great jazz band program with an amazing band director named Carl Stroman, who wrote music for Warner Brothers, all this stuff. But mostly he played like every instrument. He was a trombonist and a Rhodes player, and he would turn us on to Return to Forever and Frank Zappa and all this stuff as like a rhythm section for the jazz band to get schooled in the people who are like doing stuff. So we would do like Peaches and Regalia, and we do like Herbie tunes, like off practice hours, And he sort of built up this rhythm section, which turned out to be my band in high school. All of us who are still performing music today professionally, which is like a story for another day. But that coming to Boston University, I was like, I want to go to music school. And my parents were like, you should probably do something that's going to pay you some money so that when you're a starving artist, you can at least pay for your, whatever, the Jewish tradition, the fallback plan. So I was like, well, Boston's the place for that, right? Because, it's like all these music schools and all these bands that I already kind of knew about were there. And so I went to BU, and I met, Rob Marsher right away, who, from the Addison Group Project. He was in my class, and just got sort of immersed into that scene. And at the time, I knew the Northeast was the place. Like, we had bands like Medeski, Martin, and Wood that were playing all the time. We had the Slip. We had, just the Miracle Orchestra, like you mentioned.
Club Delph.
Schleho. Crazy bands. Club Delph. Actual Proof, right from the Boston, the early Boston days. And of course, a band called Kudu with D'Anthony Parks, like playing drum and bass before like anyone really heard anything like that before on a live kit. And these are
what was it? Nick Casper?
Oh yeah,
the keyboardist of Kudu.
That's right.
Genius.
That's right. I completely forgot.
It. Shout out Nick Casper.
I knew by the way you snuck up on me. I never had a chance. Your cast just fell upon me. Don't you ever play there?
Thank you for bringing that to my attention. I just turned the Electric Keef guys onto that band, Kudu. I was like, you got to check this out, because they're all about that area too. And speaking of them, like Dave Fuzinski and his band Keef at the time was their big influence, and they didn't think anybody ever had heard that band. I'm like, I used to see them at the Wetlands all the time, what was happening there was like undeniable, right? It was undeniable even as like a kid. Maceo Parker, with the band, with that band, Larry Goldings on Hammond organ playing in Portchester, like these little tiny places, and like, yeah, it was like hot, and it was amazing, and our access to that culturally, being able to take advantage of the cities that we lived in, Philadelphia, New York City, Boston, these places that are just like have it all the time, and able to access it at a young age was transformative, right? And so went to Boston, went to school there, knew whatever I was learning wasn't going to be the thing, but I wanted to just be immersed in the whole experience overall. And so, I started playing in bands there. Robbie Kay and I were homies, from the very, very beginning, and we, had and some of your crew too from like Drew Cressman,
sure.
great jazz guitar player.
Keith Bernstein.
Yep, exactly. So anyway, we had a really great hang, and we were immersed in music, and like I feel like at that, like people who were in college then making music were like already professionals, like Lettuce, Soul Live, like seeing them perform. Even then, you were like
Wally's days, that kind of shit.
Yeah, exactly. Wally's and house parties in Austin and things like that. I remember specifically a gig which is like Drew Cressman and I, and I think Krevlin were on it, and a drummer named Michael Lewis were playing at this house party in Austin, the Red House, and like Kraz shows up, and we had just seen Soul Live. The Red House. Of course, the Red House. Shout out to anybody who knows the Red House, Mike Pop, the crew.
Mike Pop, what up, Mike Pop, dude?
Yeah.
Talk about 1.0 Fish tour.
Exactly.
What up, Michael Pop?
So, the Kraz came to the party and we were jamming, and he's like, "Can I sit in?" He walks over to Cressman, and like, "Can I sit in?" And Cressman's like, "No," because he wanted to play. He wanted to play, and we were like, we just saw Soul, like that's Kraz, you should get him up here, or whatever. It was like totally one of those like funny, early interactions, but. In high school, we were also fortunate enough to have a band like Fish, who was not only taking the improvisational thing live every night in a different way, on full display in a rock and roll way that was like no other bands were doing, but we were able to see so many shows. I mean, you could see Fish like 20 times a year without even really doing anything, like without missing a day of school, without any of that stuff. And Medeski, Martin, and Wood was like the first band that broke open the live improvisation thing for me, to where I was like, what is happening here? How are they communicating without talking to each other, right? Like, and seeing that in small clubs was amazing. But then seeing, Fish do that every night with the tension and release, with the building the epic rock soul, with all the guitar solos, with the production, with the whole thing, and with the scene behind it, it was really inspiring, obviously. Yeah. And I feel like that our generation of people who got to witness that at a time when it was still inclusive, and there was no jaded anything. It was something that was fresh and new. It was like you were camping, you were going to show. It wasn't about money. It was about just getting in the door, having the experience with your friends, and being like, what just happened? How did that transition? Like talking about it in such detail.
It was life outside of life.
I started this little funk group because we can we can't end this whole thing without a little bit more funk, since that's kind of been the theme. So just for those of you who want to take off, but for those of you who just want to dance to the funk, you know, we're going to stay around and keep grooving. So thanks a lot. It's really been fun, and we'll see you guys this summer.
Going on the tours, connecting with your friends, connecting with other musicians. For me, it was really about seeing these bands perform with musician friends of mine and being able to geek out on the elements of music that was like, we just didn't have. It was like just a guidebook of like how to live your life musically. You're like, how did he make that transition? Like, they dropped. Was that in 5? Like, what was going on there? You know, or like that thing where the drummer communicated by playing his hi-hat 3 times, like, or whatever it was. Like, how do we do that? You know, and so that all was just was always there. Thankfully, because of the area that we lived in and the influences that we had from older brothers or whatever it was that kind of turned us on to those first bootlegs that kind of got us out the door. So, you know, what's amazing now, coming back to the now, right now with all this stuff, is like so many people that we'd go to shows with, whether it be you and your crew from Vermont or, you know, just like, I don't know, whoever, like Michigan kids, all these different like kind of crews of the 1.0 Fish generation are like all the people making things happen now in this in the music industry. And of course that's the way it is, you know, like, of course, because that what we all live through in that for the music and music industry and jam band community and improvisational music and the acceptance of instrumental music even to a wider community, breaking down the barriers of like jazz being like, you know, not an art form, like a craft or something, you know, like really like just blowing open all those doors. I feel like that it's such an impact on so many people's lives that we're experiencing now here. You know, I mean, like, you've obviously taken the music experience and writing to, like, you know, to become your life and your career and your path, which is bringing just your passion for music, which you had then, you know, into like something that people can actually benefit from. You know, for me, it was really about learning the way of music and doing that with musicians. And my friends, my music community grew and grew and grew. And it diversified as we got older. You know, I fell off from seeing Fish in the late 90s and didn't get back into seeing Fish till I met my wife in, you know, 2011, you know, like, or whatever. So it's like there was a big gap in there where I was listening to a lot of other stuff other than Fish. And those pathways, like, comes back down to like the people that I meet now. I'm like, oh yeah, of course you're managing this band, or of course you made this festival happen somewhere where no one thought it was possible, or of course you have, you know, a podcast that has 1 million listeners, or whatever it is, you know, or of course you're playing shows for 80,000 people in Europe, you know. I just think we're really grateful to it, and it's just amazing that we were able to be a part of that. And it's special. There's vibrations that happen at certain time periods in life. The Northeast in the 90s, you know, Hayden Ashbury in the 60s, whatever you want to do, that the deep funk revolution that happened, you know, when the Poets of Rhythm in Germany and the Daptones and all that stuff that's kind of started releasing records, and the Grey Boy All-Stars, and, you know, all these bands from the West Coast started making like old records that sounded like
Master Sounds.
The new Master Sounds. Yeah, like that whole thing, you know, those little moments in time, they have ripple effects down the road that people will experience for generations and generations to come. And a lot of that is based on the content that's being created now by these bands that you're talking about, you know, and that we're going to witness. So bringing it back to Boston, you know, the Northeast where we lived, all that different stuff, and our relationship, you know, we got to see and figure out a lot of the things that we were figuring out then, like how to get from show to show by selling grilled cheese or selling hemp jewelry or selling, you know, nugs that you bought from your buddy or whatever before you went on tour.
No GPS, no fucking computer in your pocket.
I mean, I used those skills yesterday when our van rental didn't happen and we had to go like wrestle up some rental cars in Atlanta and there were none to be found. And I'm like, well, there's no way we're not making this gig. Like, we're making the gig, of course. You know, it's like, these are the things that, you know, all those skills are like.
You didn't really play Suwannee if it wasn't a shit show getting here.
No, I mean, everything is in life, though, is obstacles, right? And what we learned then, whether it's musically or just getting to the gig or getting the ticket to get in the door, to have that experience with your friends, was that you're gonna make it happen. You are, you know what I mean? I am. Yeah. And so that make it happen thing was really kind of the thing that made me move to Seattle out of Boston after I graduated college, and to like really kind of started my music career once I left Boston. Was taking that engine that was firing and like turning it into a vehicle of my creation, you know, of our creation here.
Oh, dude, so well stated, man. And there's so much to unpack in what you just said. Like, first things first, I want to come back to real quick. Maceo Parker, Life in Planet Groove.
Yeah.
We referenced that.
Yeah.
Also the record that lit the Lettuce flame. That and Thrust. But that's what they listened to together to get stoked in like the 90s at Berkeley.
Sure.
Life on Planet Groove. It just was such a passageway because it was like classic James Brown vibes, funk vibes, stuff you recognize from hip hop samples, but the fidelity of the recording, the oomph, was like, whoa.
We like to do 2% jazz, 98% funky stuff. Good God. This is known as happy music. Happy. Good God. Happy music is when you hear it, you start moving and shaking something automatically. That's what it is. And you smile a lot too.
And that was just the passageway for so many of us to find the funk. And you brought up the Grey Boys, and I've had Carl on the pod and Robert Walter, and we've talked about it. But they were in this unique space where like they jammed and you could dance, but they were nothing like The Dead or Fish, but they just existed in a space where it was like something you could get with, you know, but it was so its own thing, and it was, you know, retro and rare groove and boogaloo. But it was just enough of the Venn diagram that the hippies like to dance, and like, you know, cats that were into jazz and funk, and they caught lightning in a bottle. And you referenced Medeski, Martin, and Wood. Of course, there was the Trey sit-in in Albany, which really put them on the map for us. But they were already like neck deep in the Village, you know, downtown New York jazz thing. And then they started bringing in dance music vibes, Logic, programmed drums, all the sort of textural, dubby shit. And so those were just these pivotal artists, passageways for us to plug in to something that we didn't even know what it was. That like nascent jam thing happened on the nightclubs and Berkfests and early Bonnaroos, and you gotta hand it to High Sierra. They were there early and often, you know, flagship fucking event. Jazz Fest, High Sierra, Jam Cruise, like they're so unique. And I think Bear Creek should be in the conversation, even though it was shorter lived. These were like these pivotal events that gave like us place to go and homogenize different types of music where you could play alongside like a green sky bluegrass, and then you could have fucking Tipper, you know, like that stuff is the product of all this like thing that really began like the music you heard at Loring Air Force Base in Maine in between fish sets, whether hip hop, funk, you heard some shit, you went over to the camp, you got hip, and you went home and got the disc or whatever.
Well, I mean, that alone, like we were tapping into there, was probably, like, you know, undeniably is probably the most important part of that experience, right? Is the fact that at that time, it wasn't like people were only listening to Fish, right? It was like people who were going to see Fish were in on it early because it was so amazing, but it was like everyone was sharing their cuts, their playlists, their mixtapes of like rare funk or whatever, or like disco, like the disco tents late night or whatever, you're getting turned on to stuff. And so like connecting with your friends in the mid-Atlantic who you hadn't seen in a while, or your friends up in Burlington, or like turning you on to like check out this thing. That experience, like it went beyond like the bootleg trading of like one band or Grateful Dead. It was like, that was really like the way that, you know, that I got turned on to so much stuff, everything from bluegrass to jazz to funk to like, there's so much music that came out of that influence. And I think that jam band music gets a bad rap now because a lot of people like categorize their fans as like they only listen to this or whatever. And I don't know if that's true or not at this point, but what I do know is that what every band wants are jam band fans.
Right. That's funny you said that, because on this podcast, Adam Smirnoff, shout out Schmeens, I asked him, because like Lettuce, for them, the jam band thing has been like gift and a curse, and it's been discussed ad nauseum. They ran from it, they embrace it, you know. And Shmeen said the same thing you did in different words, which is like, jam band does not describe the band or the music, it's the audience. I thought that was so brilliant of Shmeen's to turn it around from the stage to the rage. Like the jam band is out there.
Yeah.
You know, we're just playing the music.
Yeah, we're playing funk music, and they're here to jam band.
And they're not just playing funk, though.
No, of course not. I mean,
of
course not. I don't mean to put them in a box. Like, of course not. That, you know.
That's what jam band is, though. You can't put it in a box. You say funk. Well, this other song is more hip hop, and then this other song is trap, and then try to. What is one word we'd say about polyrhythmics? Like, you can't put funk. You wouldn't say like.
I think
jazz,
instrumental.
Dub, you know,
we're not gonna,
all those things.
We're not gonna sing.
All right, we've been hogging up and talking Northeast jam bands and Fish or whatever. I have no idea your roots. So while we're geeking out on Fish tour in the '90s and building the jam band world in the past 20 years, what is Jason up to? What are you listening to? What scenes are you plugged into? Like, you know, 20-ish years ago.
Yeah, it's. I'm glad you asked, and it's going to be a short story, but I took a break from music and really from my active engagement in seeking music. The draw never took a break, but I just, after high school, I spent a year or so trying to get out of my hometown in California, basically.
Where is that, if you don't mind me asking?
It's a little town called Porterville.
Okay.
And south of Fresno, Tulare County.
Okay.
Yeah, south of Fresno, north of Bakersfield. Square in the heart of the agricultural, you know, the bread basket of the country, basically. And so, anyways, lots of crops and lots of migrant workers to pick those crops, right? So it led to a little bit of a depressed economy. I needed out. I knew I wanted out. I knew I didn't want to stay in that small town. And so I was in music. I'd played music since elementary school, through junior high and high school. I played lead trumpet in a big band, which was really influential to both my taste and my direction, my textural, inclinations as far as what sounds good, right? Early indications are important for that. And then I joined the Navy, and I got out of town.
Wow.
So
my grandfather was in the Navy. Decorated.
Yeah, nice.
It's all good.
I spent almost 9 years in the Navy. Most of it as a nuclear engineer on submarines.
Jeez.
And that's
smart motherfucker.
I test well. Let's just put it that way. But yeah, so then I got out, and music came calling back, is what it boils down to. I got out of the Navy and decided to go to college for music. And so I got my undergrad in jazz bass performance at Cornish College of the Arts in Seattle.
What year are we talking now? You get out of the Navy when?
Out of the Navy was like fall 07. I really kind of showed up on the Seattle music scene 05-ish. I came up to the Pacific Northwest in 2000. That was what started my career up here at the, on the submarines. But it's been an interesting road and quite a left turn, right, from working on a submarine to playing on stages like this, here at Suwannee.
But that's a short story, like you said, but I'm sure there's got to be influence, even if you weren't plugged into a scene or contributing. Like, what was getting you off musically, like in those days? What did you listen to on the submarine? What did you listen to in your life, in your teens and 20s, like that got you stoked, like plugged you into music as an art form that, yours?
Yeah, I mean, I was kind of, when I was in high school, I was a little bit of a jazz band nerd, and more than that, a trumpet nerd. In that I listened to like Pancho Sanchez, like a lot of hot horn players and all the Latin bands, right? Yeah. And so that's like, and I was a lead player too. I wasn't a heavy improviser. I was a lead player, so I was a high note horse. I'd be just cranking out the top lead tones, and that's kind of what I was drawn to, right, early on. Like Doc Severinsen, Maynard Ferguson, all of the more popular trumpet players, if there is such a thing, right?
How about, he's not a trumpet player, but he featured a trumpet, like Mongo Santa Maria?
Oh yeah, Mongo Santa Maria, for sure.
I inherited a ton of Mongo Santa Maria vinyl.
Yeah. To be honest, I didn't get hip to that kind of that depth of music until later, until after that. I was still surface level. Like Arturo Sandoval was a big one.
Yeah.
So those were my earlier influences, and then like the I grew up kind of in like, both my folks were teachers, were like grade school and high school teachers, and I grew up in like kind of the suburbia of my small town, and so I didn't have like any music venues. There was not really a lot going on in town. The main thing was the high school programs, and that was.
How were you getting music? How were you finding these records, these artists back then?
I mean, some of it was just digging at the record shop.
Yeah.
And like in a blind way, just like literally like, oh, that's cool, and like just asking people, like, and it's funny. I remember asking my dad a couple times about music. I'm like, oh, cool, like, what do you like? I remember specifically, I can't remember the name of the album, but it's a Pink Floyd album with a dude wearing a bunch of light bulbs on his suit, right? And I flipped by. I was like, "Oh, this looks kind of neat." And I asked my dad. I was like, "He's like, oh, that band's a little weird. Pink Floyd, yeah, I don't know about." It turns out it's to be one of my favorite bands of all time. Right?
I can
it's
hear
like,
it in your playing, like the textural and like the vibe tones, just like it's Floydian.
Yeah. That's wow, cool, man. I've never heard that before. That's interesting. So then I went through the kind of went through the 60s charts, basically, like Floyd, Zeppelin, the Beatles.
Is that what your dad played in the house?
No.
What did he play?
Like Kenny G.
Really?
Yeah, like it was pretty dry around where I grew up. Yeah, it was and like Celine Dion, and like we're talking like
pop music.
Evening TV pop stuff. Yeah, like
the 80s was a tough time,
I mean, no, it wasn't. Incredible.
No, there was a lot of stuff happening, but like for like a common person, like like who was like basically being fed whatever they're being fed. You know what I mean? Like there's not a lot of like there. It was a wasteland of maybe poorly executed pop music that was being sort of shoved down people's throat. It was kind of a transitionary time, I think. I mean, there was gems in there, of course, but they weren't playing the Talking Heads, and they weren't playing like MJ at the end there.
Prince,
kind of course,
Time,
of
Anita
course.
Baker, Sade. I'm just saying, there's a lot in my '80s wheelhouse. But you're right. There's a lot of garbage.
I think what was being also like, I think the radio stations changed. Where it was like a little bit more like less out of the control of the DJ, a little bit more like
the clear channelization.
Yeah, it was like corporate fed. Like you're gonna play these records. It doesn't matter what you think about them. Yeah, or you have to play at least this amount of tunes per set.
Right.
And so I think that was weird. The 90s kind of took a little bit. There was like more rebel DJs coming back.
Or you went to you listened to college stations in the 90s, right? Like whatever your local, like we have KBMR in Nevada City, or UPenn in Philly or whatever, and then those would be like real college radio.
Yeah.
And then that was
That's
the
where
place
they
a
played
lot
God
of-
Street Wine.
Yeah, independent stuff broke there. Hip hop. I mean, that's how Public Enemy got heard.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah. There was like a college radio station.
That's surprising, actually. I would have thought
Yeah.
differently, but that's amazing.
Now, we just did a quick pause for the cause, and we realized that the great Luther Dickinson and his brother Cody and the North Mississippi All-Stars just hit the stage. You're a big fan of them, you're telling me.
I
right?
love Luther, man. He's like I was telling you before, he's like my guitar spirit animal. Dude, I love his playing. He's like one of the most real guitar trends, some people can are like transfers of energy, and he can play music from times before him, times the music that he writes, and it's all so believable and delivered with just like such authenticity that it's kind of undeniable. And love his tone. We've had a lot of great hangs. We met at Mom's Ball in New Orleans. That was our first time Polyrhythmics playing in New Orleans.
Sick.
Didn't know anything about Mom's Ball or what it even was.
Really?
We just got booked on this gig, and we show up, and like North Mississippi All Stars is there, and it's like a 5,000 person party.
Yeah, it's insane.
And we were like raged at. That's where we met Lyle and Paul, and like a lot of the crew. I guess the Suwannee crew, the Bear Creek crew. And so anyway, just have had some really great experiences with that dude, and love his playing and love his band, and I'm excited to go check him out tonight.
Definitely. He has a storied history here at the park at Suwannee. Derek is probably the prodigal son, but Luther not far behind. Going back to the Wani era, which was like the Almonds Fest that happened here for years and way before Bear Creek. And, Luther played those, and Luther is beloved in this region.
Well, it's understandable, and his family, he comes from just like such a rich recording tradition.
Yeah.
And that's like something that, more important to me than anything else in music, as far as I love musicians who can shred things to pieces on stage and impress me and do all that stuff. I love that. But like artists who are here to leave things behind and make the music that they're creating purposeful and record it and make it art in the true sense, something that you can hold in your hand, whether it's a digital hand or not, you know what I mean?
Sure.
But like just basically documenting it, because experiences are one thing for sure, and they're important because that's the lifeblood of that's the vibe, that's the spark, right?
Yeah.
But like what you create in this world and what you leave the world, what you leave behind is the most important thing. That's why I feel like why we're given any kind of gift, right? Is to basically make it so that gift can be shared from here into eternity in some way.
Yeah.
Jimi Hendrix, luckily, in the short amount of time that he played music, recorded a bunch of music, and there's a lot of stuff considering the amount of time that he played on this earth that you can hear, and it changed music because of that. If it was just the people that got to experience it live, do you think it would have had that impact? No, it would have been gone in a blip. But now you have kids who are like 6 years old who can watch a YouTube video, Jimi Hendrix playing in Hawaii or whatever, and just be like,
Right.
take it from there into the next thing. And that's just like being able to see that in real time with technology the way it is. To me, it makes it even more important that artists take the time to record and get good at that and make do that thing. That's what Polyrhythmics really is about. That's where we started. That's what we're still true to this day. That's what Jason has kind of grown his craft into, building a studio in West Seattle that we call home now. And
Oh, that's dope. What's that called? What's the studio called?
Blue Mallard Recording is
Right
the name
on.
of the studio, yeah.
Yeah.
he's recorded some amazing bands this year, including the Delvon Lamar Organ Trio. I don't know if you know that group,
course,
but
dude.
those some
Also
of those.
beloved here. They've played a number of events at the park.
That's right. Yeah, they
Yep.
were just through. And Jason made all those records and the True Loves records and all kinds of great music.
True Love's record is sick.
Yeah.
Yeah. Shout out Scarrick. Next up on the pod.
Right on. Scarrick.
Yep.
Now we love Scarrick.
Speaking of Seattle, I was remiss. I have to shout out the ultimate homie, Marika.
Yeah.
Seattle. I know she'll listen to this episode because you're on it.
Right on. What up, Marika?
Yeah, I met her at Symbiosis 2016. She was dancing near me. She just looked amazing and was like, talking about the blissed out dance thing that I chase. I glanced over and this lovely young woman was also lost in the bliss dance. We ended up becoming friends, and one of the first things we discussed was our shared affection for you.
Right on, man.
So shout out Marika.
Shout out Marika. She's living in Cali now, I think.
Yeah, in like a tree house.
Yeah.
We love you, Marika.
Yeah.
I know we want to get to the stage. You want to get something to eat. We got to get some layers on. Real quick, what's next?
Well, we're about to, we just finished recording a new record. We just finished it, done, sealed, kind of signed, sealed, delivered this last week. And so that's exciting to get some new music out the door.
Label?
Yeah.
Self?
I'm not sure. I mean, honestly, we haven't even gotten that far yet. Likely it'll probably be a color red release, but
cool.
We'll have to wait and see. I don't know. Like literally, we just got done making the art, so
right.
There's things that are out of our control. Yeah, so it'll probably be a color red release. So we're gonna do. So that's done, and that's exciting. We're gonna be playing a festival in the Northeast, in Pennsylvania called Gibber Jazz. I forget what the name of the festival is.
Some kind of funk.
Some kind of jam is what it's called.
Jam, okay.
It's kind of a weird thing, but a lot of like great musicians have come through there and played that festival. And we've done it a few times out there. It's been really, really fun. So we're going to go back and do that and play in Asbury Park, New Jersey.
Home of the boss.
That's right.
Bruce Springsteen.
Exactly.
Robbie loves Bruce.
I know.
Like right next to Garcia. It's like 1 and 1A.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
I know. We've had many conversations.
I'm not
about
a boss
the boss
guy. I respect him. I'm from Jersey. I represent, but
I'm
not a boss guy.
And luckily in New Jersey, you have like 5 things that you could latch onto. You have your choice. Jovi, of course.
Yeah, I'm Team Jovi.
Yeah.
Although not without Sambora.
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
The new shit.
I'm totally with you on that. I mean, it's nice that any artist has a legacy, like a long career like that.
How are you gonna do Wanted without those hard? You can't do Wanted without Sambora. But well, here's the thing. We were gonna do just us, and I'm so glad you came because we were able to talk about the whole band.
Yeah.
We have to do Rabbit Hole Pod,
all right.
Northeast Jam Scene, all this Bruce shit, like another time down the road.
Well, anyway, for Polyrhythmics, we're gonna do that. We're doing these shows. Check out the website, all that stuff, and hopefully, like really, as we're coming out of the pandemic, and we all have families and different things that are kind of, have just kind of fruited during this time off, we're kind of like really kind of looking forward to the fall and getting out, hopefully supporting this new record and doing a lot of shows and getting more people turned on to the art. We're one thing that we're really focused on right now is we're re-releasing our back catalog on vinyl because it's all sold out, which is amazing for us. It feels honored that we can like do some repressings, and we've got some great people helping us with that. So we're re-releasing Libra Stripes, and then Octagon will be the next one to come out again on vinyl. And one of the things that, if I can sort of convey anything that's important about us, is like we are a recording project. We make records, right? Mm-hmm. And the purpose of we play the shows to bring those records to people so they can buy them, because someone's got to do that, right? Mm-hmm. So that they can hear them and get them out there. But ultimately, like, we want to have our catalog available on vinyl for anybody to get, no matter when they're coming into our music, right? Because hopefully the goal with this is that it's timeless music, that it's music that is not like, oh, this record came out in 95. It's like, well, this is one of the records that we're listening, whatever it is. And that's, I don't know if we've attained that yet, or we've achieved that, but that's a goal, is to basically have a catalog of music that people can listen to at any time in the future and be like, Man from the Future is relevant, Libra Stripes is relevant, Octagon is relevant, whatever it is,
Yeah, I think that's
the goal. That's what we're
remarkable and really unique to y'all. I wanted to ask you, Jason, any parting words, anything you wanted to share about, like, that he may have missed about the future, or that a point you would want to drive home, or anything you want to leave people with before we go rage North Mississippi?
Yeah, man, thank you. I do have something, and I think it has to do with the future of this band. And one thing that I'm excited about is the new music that we're going to be able to present. And it comes from this last record. it will come from this last record, because this last record was made during COVID, when we could not field test our songs.
Right, yeah.
So this record that's about to come out, that we just finished mixing, that we just kind of are wrapping up right now and making a plan for actually getting it out to the world, a lot of that music has not seen the stage before it hit the record, like almost all of our other recorded material, right? And so what I'm looking forward to in the future is realizing that music live. There are things that we did in the studio that we can't reproduce live. We played too many parts. We added on. We took all the liberties that were afforded us by that isolation and used all of that, the studio stuff to add layers. And so now we've got to decode that and find a way to present that art in a live format. And so that's something that I'm looking forward to with this band coming up. And it's going to take a lot of work, and
Sure.
we're painfully democratic about all of our decisions around this. And so, as always, I look forward to that, to doing the work, because it pays off, and the payoff has been amazing.
Yeah, well,
So
we're grateful for the work and grateful for the gift and the art and all of it. Like, I know, like, I homied out with him really hard during this thing, but you really gave such insightful window into the, like I said, the modus operandi, the sort of vision from then to now, the future. So
Yeah.
I'm equally grateful that you sat down with us and like gave a different like look at it, because I would have just gotten Ben's thing, and I have a much, I think, maybe wider scope thanks to your contributions.
Right on, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah,
It's been
of
a
course,
pleasure.
man. We'll do it again down the road. I plan on seeing y'all whenever you're drivable,
Yeah.
Last thing, how do I get the Ben Bloom flat bill?
Well,
Or we can say it off the air if you don't want people
no.
to
I
hear.
mean, the reality
I
of
need
the situation
to
is,
rock the fuck out of that thing.
so the reality is that I don't have my own clothing company, although I should. And I actually have a brand name already picked out and everything like that, but I'm not like a merch guy, you know what I
Right.
mean, or like a collector of many things. The B hat thing kind of came from like me not liking any sports or any sports talk at all. Like, I don't want somebody coming up to me and being like, "Yo, Boston, what up, homie?" I don't want to talk about sports. I don't want to talk about hockey. I don't want to talk about baseball. And I've lived in a lot of like sports active towns, so it's,
Boston, huh? You know,
yeah,
like New
yeah,
York,
exactly.
right?
Like, what are you gonna do? So
Philly. I'm from Philly. I'm one of those guys that would run up on you and be like, "Yo."
yeah, you and your crew, and it's cool. But like, we have there's like, I gotta exit. I know how to get out of those situations at this point in life. But regardless, like the B hat thing, which just came from the name. Like, my name is Ben Bloom. I got two B's in my name. It's easy. Obviously, you're a B. I'm a B. I've got two holes. And so the hats kind of started coming. People give me hats. I started looking at them. This particular hat that I'm wearing right here is from a company. I'll give you the name so you can plug it, because it's a company that is all the proceeds from their merch is about saving bees, and so it's like a
Even
bee
better.
donation fund basically for them to like save the bees. So it's something that we need. We need pollinators in this world, right? Cross pollinators,
We sure
just like
do.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I love that story. It's not even like, oh yeah, this is my company. I put
no,
two
it's not.
Bs on my
But this one
forehead.
happens to have two bees in it, which is amazing.
Yeah.
Like, that's like a double rainbow. You know what I mean?
It's
For a guy
incredible,
like
dude.
me with two
Because
bees.
somebody turned to me while you were on stage this afternoon and was like, "This fucking gangster's got his own hat." And I was like, "Oh my god, it's bees." That's why I was like, mental note.
I can't take but I will give you the names so we can plug them and
Yeah.
people can support the bees, because I bought a couple hats.
There's bee everything in our house, like bee hat pins, bee artwork. People just hook it up. They're like, all right, this has been real. We're gonna do it again. We're gonna do our rabbit hole fucking history of jam bands sidebar pod sometime. So anyway, thank you guys. It's been fucking real. Long overdue.
Yeah, man.
We'll do it again. And thank you for blessing the spirit of the Suwannee. The last thing I always ask is like, what's the URL? One website, one place to go for Polyrhythmics.
Polyrhythmics.com.
Spell it.
POLYRHYTHMICS. 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 Polyrhythmics.com.
It's a mouthful. Check the show notes, fam. There'll be a clickable link. You don't have to remember that shit. So goodbye, God bless. It's been the Upful Life podcast, and we'll see you next time.
Peace.
Fly like a dog. They come from up above. Very love. The way I feel, sometimes it's too hard to sit still. Things are so passionate, signs are so real. Sometimes I try to chill, mellow down, blow a smoke. Smile on my face, but it's really no joke. You feel it in the street, the people breathe without hope. They going through the motion, dimming down the focus. The focus get cleared and the light turns sharp and the eyes get teary. The mind grow weary. I speak it so clearly, sometimes they don't hear me. I'll push you past the base, no donations.
Yes, indeedy. I want to say thank you to Ben and Jason of Polyrhythmics. Check them out, polyrhythmics.com, and hopefully come into a town, city, village near you. We're going to get into a little bit of Yasin Bey, formerly known as the Mighty Most Def. Like we always do about this time, the Vibe Junkie Jams. I'm going to play two tunes, two cuts, both live. And we'll start in honor of the out-of-body experience that was the Mighty Most Def, Mr. Yasin Bey, at the Blue Note Jazz Festival, Napa Valley, which again you can read about on Live for Live Music and upfullife.com. I'm going to play a collab he did with the Robert Glasper Experiment live in 2019. Stakes is High, one of my favorite Dilla beats of all time. And, you know, just next level. Both artists. It's a De La Soul song that Dilla laced, and it's an Ahmad Jamal sample. It's at the Vox Jazz Festival, and we're going to hear that Yasin Bey, Robert Glasper Experiment, Stakes is High, and then we're going to hear Chelada, Chelada, Chelada by Polyrhythmics. Probably my favorite song by that crew. And that'll wrap it up for episode 59 of the Upful Life podcast. Big up yourself for tuning in. Give thanks. Goodbye. God bless. And we'll see you next time.
The Liberator. The Operator. Amazing flavor. Ooh la la. Ça pique. We got some fun. And when I say vibe, you say vibe, you say vibration. Very simply, y'all. When I say vibe, you say vibration. Écoutez. When I say vibe, you say. 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 When I say vibe, you say vibration. Let's go. Stakes, sky high, vibration. the instrument and focal point, bringing damage to the burrow. The brother from the east with the beat that be thorough. Got solar gravitation, so I'm bound to pull it. Get down, like brothers are found. Ducking from bullets, gun control means using both hands in the land where it's all about the cautious land fan. Migrating to a higher form of consequence. Compliments are struggling, it shouldn't be notable. Every word I say should be a hip-hop. I'm sick of bitches shaking asses, sick of talking about the sick of Versace glasses, sick of slang, sick of half-ass war shows, and they brand clothes, and R&B suckers over bullshit track. Cocaines and cracks bring sickness to black. Cocaines and crack bring sickness to black. Cocaines and crack bring sickness, it's whack. Sick of soul head rappers with they sickening raps. Clappers and cats making the whole sick world collapse. The facts get sicker, even sicker perhaps. A sicker bush and make a bundle to escape. Man, life. Get all up in your ass and baby, you better work it out. Let me show you what it's all about. A skin not considered equal. A meteor has more right than the people who waste time screaming who they hated. That's why the native tongue has officially been reinstated with the fire. Stakes, sky high, fire. Stakes, sky high, fire. Vibration, yeah. Sky high, fire. Vibration. You wish about love, loving and love, man, sex and guns. Love for opposite for fame and wealth. Love for the fact that you don't love yourself. We living in the days of man-made ways, and every aspect is vivid. These brothers no longer talk shit, they live it. I give it to you 24/7 on the microphone. Y'all seen translating the show. No offense to a player, but I don't play it. If you take offense, listen. C'est la vie, c'est la vie. Said dreams of making paper at a high regard. And brothers dying for it nowadays ain't all. Investing in fantasies and not God. Welcome to reality, the times is hard. Trying to cash the credit but can't claim the card. Showing out in videos saying they co-star. Shit like that'll make your mama cry. You better watch how you spinning cause the stakes is high. So shit like that'll make your mama cry. You better watch how you spinning cause the stakes is high. Like that, and make your mama cry. You better watch how you spending cause the stakes is hey, 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 hey. Hey, 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 hey. Hey, hey, hey. vibration, 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 vibration. Vibration, 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 vibration,
You got it. This one's called Chelada.